Page number 80. I have finished my reading up to here. Now I will start from here. The two Sanskrit epics, the Ramayana and Mahabharata. The two Sanskrit epics, the Mahabharata and Ramayana, fall within the category of Smriti as well as Itihasa, traditional history, although the Ramayana is sometimes classified as Kavya, poetry. Similarities in language and style suggest that they emerged from a common cultural milieu. The Mahabharata refers to Valmiki and the Ramayana and outlines the Rama story in a section called Ramopakkhayana. The Ramayana in turn mentions the Kurus, Hastinapur, and Janmejaya. Although it does not mention the Mahabharata war, the two epics were clearly aware of each other, at least in their later stages of c. 400 CE, and the Ramayana between the 5th to 4th century BCE and the 3rd century CE. More recently, Hiltebeitel 2001 18 between 20 pages has suggested a shorter period of composition for the Mahabharata from the mid 2nd century BCE to the year 0. Nevertheless, the fact that the different stages in the composition and development of the epics could well have spanned many centuries, possibly even a millennium, should make it obvious why most historians no longer use the term epic age. The epics are magnificent texts with powerful stories that have captured the imagination of millions of people over the centuries. To use them as historical sources, it is necessary to identify their internal chronological layers, which is not an easy task. According to tradition, Rama lived in the Treta Yuga age and the Mahabharata war happened later in the Dwapara Yuga. However, some historians argue that the events and characters associated with the Mahabharata reflect a slightly earlier period than those of the Ramayana. This is because the setting of the Mahabharata is the Indo-Gangetic divide and the upper Ganga valley, while in the Ramayana the center of political gravity had clearly shifted eastwards to the middle Ganga valley. The strong woman characters of the Mahabharata suggest an earlier stage of social development when women were less subordinated to men compared to later times. The practice of Nyuga levirate, that is, when a husband deputes his conjugal rights over his wife to another man in order to produce an heir, in the Mahabharata also suggests a social stage that is prior to that the Ramayana, which reflects much stricter controls over women. In Mahabharata, consists of 18 parvas books and has two main recensions, a northern and southern. The core story concerns a conflict between two sets of conscience, the Kauravas and the Pandavas, and a great war that was fought between them at Kurukshetra. But the text also contains a huge amount of material that has little or no connection with the main story. According to tradition, it was composed by Vaishya, but in its present form, it is clearly not the work of a single individual. The Mahabharata is truly an encyclopedic work and it boasts of this fact. A heroic story formed the core to which many other stories, sermons, and didactic portion containing teachings were added over centuries. The addition include the sermon on Dharma given by Bhishma as he lay dying on a bed of arrows and the stirring discourse of Krishna to Arjun on the eve of the war known as the Bhagavad Gita, where a bitter war between the Pandavas and Kauravas ever happened cannot be proved or disproved. It is possible that there was a small scale conflict transformed into a gigantic epic war by birds and poets. Some historians and archaeologists have argued that this conflict may have occurred in about 1000 BCE. The Ramayana exists in the form two main recensions, northern and southern. The northern recension can be further divided into the northeastern, northwestern, and western. The language of the northern eastern is more elaborate and polished than that of the southern one. The epic consists of seven kandas, books, of which the first Bala Kanda and the last Uttara Kanda are later interpolations. The basic story is about Rama, prince of Koshala, his banishment to the forest due to the intrigues of his wicked stepmother, the abduction of his wife Sita by Ravana, the king of Lanka, Sita's rescue, and Rama's return to the capital Ayodhya to become king. The compact vocabulary and style indicate that the core of the text was the work of a single individual, traditionally identified as Valmiki. Valmiki appears in the Valakanda, where he is inspired to compose the epic, and in the Uttarakanda, where he gives refuge to Sita, who has been disowned by Rama. Excavations at the site of Ayodhya have indicated the existence of a settlement here from the northern black polished ware NBPW phase, which may go back to the earliest to c. 700 BCE. However, as with the Mahabharata, the archaeological evidence does not tell us whether there is any historical basis of the events or the characters of Ramayana. The popularity and dynamism of the Rama story is indicated by the fact that, apart from the Valmiki Ramayana, which seems to be the oldest version, there are numerous other tellings of the Rama story. A Jaina version, the Paumacharyu of Vimala Suri in Prakrit, a Buddhist version, a Dasharatha Jataka in Pali, a 12th century Tamil version by Kamban, the Iramavataram, and the Ramacharitmanas 16th century by Tulsidas. To name only a few, there are also innumerable oral versions of the story. The Rama legend. Now it will start from here to here. I will first complete. Then I will read this archaeological and the Mahabharata. Then I will read the chronological layers of the Ramayana. Has enjoyed great popularity in other parts of Asia as well as in other various telling of the story in Tibet, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia and Indonesia. The various tellings often have different beginnings and endings, and characters and events are modeled in different ways. See Richman 1992. For instance, in the Paumacharyu, Ravana is presented as a tragic hero who is killed by Lakshmana, not by Rama, who embodies all the Jaina virtues including non-violence. Apart from written and oral version of the story, the Ramayana has also been the subject of art and performance, sculpture, painting, plays, dance, drama, and television serials. The epics can be read in many different ways from the historical points of view. While most scholars are focused on debating the historicity of the events, some have tried to describe their many different cultural layers. Another approach is to read such texts as a response to a specific kind of historical context. For instance, James Leigh Fitzgerald in Mitchell and Thursby 2005-54 has argued that Mahabharata was a Brahmical response to certain specific historical development. The increasing popularity of religious traditions such as Buddhism and Jainism and the rise of dynasties such as Nanda as Mauryas who extended support to them were perceived by a section of the Brahmanas as threatening the Brahmical order. The Mahabharata was their response to this perceived crisis. This is the Puranas. Now first I will complete these two reading, then I will read the Puranas. Archaeology and the Mahabharata. Archaeological exploration and excavation at places mentioned in the Mahabharata, that is Hastinapura, Kurukshetra, Panipat, Tilpat, Bagpat, Mathura and Vairat, have given evidence of a pottery called painted grey ware (PGW), which goes back to c. 1000 BCE. This shows that these sites were inhabited around this time, and the nature of the remains suggests that the people who lived here shared a pastoral cum agricultural lifestyle. There is another sort of evidence from Hastinapura. The Matsya and the Vayu Puranas state that during the reign of King Nichashu, fifth king after Parikshit, grandson of Arjuna, who became king after the war, due to a flood in the Ganga, the capital was shifted from Hastinapura to Koshambi. Excavations at Hastinapura gave evidence of a flood in the Ganga, after which the site was deserted for several centuries. However, it is not necessary that this was the same flood mentioned in the Puranas. There is a strong local tradition that the Purana Kila in New Delhi marks the place where Indraprastha, the capital of the Pandavas, once stood. Shams Siraj Afif's Tariq-e-Firuz Shahi, 14th century, states that Indraprastha was the headquarters of a Pargana district. A 14th century stone inscription found in Narayana village in West Delhi also mentions Indraprastha. The 16th century Aini Akbari of Abul Fazl state that Humayun's fort was built at the place where Indraprastha, capital of the Pandavas, was located long ago. In fact, till the end of the 19th century, there was a village called Indrapat inside the fort walls. Excavations carried out at the Puranas Kila between 1954 and 1971 revealed several archaeological levels ranging from the 4th century BCE to 19th century CE. The discovery of a new stray pieces of PGW indicated the possibility that an older settlement was located somewhere nearby. However, there is no way of knowing for sure whether this settlement had any connection with the Mahabharata legend. Archaeology cannot really prove or disprove the historicity of epic events or characters. The crux of the matter is that there is a qualitative difference between the nature of literary and archaeological evidence. The epic imaginatively weaves together an event centered narrative about people and places. Archaeology, on the other hand, tells us about general patterns of material culture and cannot easily be used to corroborate textual details about individuals or events. This is page 20. Archaeology and Mahabharata is over. Now I will start the next part, this one. The chronological layers in the Ramayana. On the basis of a careful analysis of language, style, and content, J. L. Brockington, 1984, has identified five distinct chronological and cultural stages in the development of the Ramayana. The epic started taking shapes as an oral composition during the 5th to 4th centuries BCE, stage 1. The story emphasized the heroic element and its geographical horizons were limited. The material, culture, and social structure represented were relatively simple, and religious ideas and practices closer to those of the Vedas than the Puranas. In stage 2, dated 3rd century BCE, 1st century CE, there was a shift from the heroic to the aesthetic element. The geographical awareness of the text expanded eastward into the lower Ganga Valley. References to the social and economical life, such as the emphasis on the chastity of women and the description of cities and trade caravans, suggest increasing level of class stratification and subordination of women. The power of the king was emphasized and warfare had become more elaborate. The story was imbued with a religious significance. Stage 3 belonged to the 1st to 3rd century CE, but then Urbanization had spread to many new areas. The division of society into four varnas was emphasized. The king was exalted as the protector of his people and the social order. The subordination of women has had increased. Vedic gods such as Brahma and Indra were still important, but Vishnu and Shiva had appeared on the scene and were exalted. Books 1 and 8 were added to the epic during this period. In stage 4, 4th to 12th centuries, the religious and aesthetic emphasis increased. Prescription of society underlined the preeminence of the Brahmanas and the low position of the Sudras and outcast. Reference to the inauspiciousness of widows and the practice of sati, the ritual self-immolation of widows, reflect the increasing subordination of women. Vishnu and Shiva emerged as supreme gods in a religious milieu marked by temple worship and pilgrimage. The trends visible in the fourth stage were strengthened from the 12th century onwards, stage 5. Apart from these different cultural stages, Brockington also identifies corresponding changes in the delineation of the main characters of the story. For instance, he argues that in stage 1, Rama was essentially considered an exemplary human and that it was towards the end of stage 2 that he started being conceived as divine. In stage 3, Rama's victory over Ravana came to be presented as a victory of dharma, righteousness, or over evil. Although there are references to devotion to Rama in this stage, the divine character of Rama, his association with Vishnu, and his description as an incarnation avatara or Pradurvava of Vishnu are regular features of stage 4 and 5. Brockington talks of the transformation of a heroic epic into a religious epic. However, Pollock 1991-52 argues that the Ramayana was pervaded by the idea of Rama's divinity from the very outset. Here are some words I have underlined because I don't know, I couldn't understand the meaning of these words, and also even the pronunciation also. Like pervaded means present everywhere. uh, some word like I have written here, like subordination means owner rank. Here stratification means division. Chastity means purity. So see here, delineation means similar. Corresponding means similar. Delineation means outlining. So these are the word where I feel it is difficult. I underlined and I wrote the meaning. So same as it is when you are feeling somewhere it is a very hard words, you cannot understand the meaning, you immediately you point out the word and you can write the meaning over here. You can write in your copy also the meaning. Okay, and when you're listening to me, I will try to tell the meaning of hard words where I feel it is very hard. Okay, otherwise if you, I know some students are very intelligent, they understand meaning of all the lines. For them it is not necessary, but for me it is necessary. So that's why I wrote the meaning of some hard words. Okay,